Welcome to the Metal Verbalizers podcast. We think that underground metal deserves far more appreciation because there are a lot of hard-working musicians and great music to be found in underground metal. We think this should be supported and appreciated, which is why we started this podcast. We also want to share the great underground music with you. If you enjoy this podcast, your support is very important. Because if more people find us, the more we can support the bands that we verbalize. You can support us by, for example, subscribing on YouTube and following on Spotify. While you're there, feel free to also rate the podcast. All this can be done very quickly, very easily, and completely free. But it would really help the podcast and the bands we verbalize. We would be very thankful. In this type of episode, we choose a band and talk about things such as influences, style, lyrics, future plans, etc. in order to give you an introduction and an idea what the band is like, and of course, encouraging you to listen to their music and to look into them further. I am Johan Verbalizer, and this episode will be dedicated to the band Annexation. Annexation is a thrash metal band from Germany and was started in 2015. If you've listened to our episode about the band Kampa, I mentioned Annexation during that episode alongside some other Berlin thrash metal bands, but I think that Annexation is such a great band that they really deserve their own episode. When it comes to the influences of Annexation, the main ones are Slayer, Demolition Hammer, Power Trip, Dark Angel, Sadus, and Obituary. They want to get back to the old school style of thrash metal with that type of a lot of aggression and wrath, while also adding some eerie atmosphere in a similar style of an album like Hell Awaits by Slayer. Annexation tends to often go for a kind of slower and aggressive type of thrash metal, which I guess you could compare to bands like sometimes Slayer, but also like Demolition Hammer and Power Trip. But they're also speeding up at times, which results in a pretty cool sound in my opinion. The length of these songs tend to range between 3 to 4 minutes, so I think that Annexation is taking their time, but they're not wasting any time. So if you like slower and heavy thrash, but maybe not a big fan of really long songs, then Annexation could possibly be pretty much the perfect band for you. If you're a fan of the aggressive and really heavy type of thrash that is clearly influenced by death metal, like Obituary, like I mentioned earlier, then you should definitely check out Annexation. Personally, I feel that I can also hear a lot of creator in the music of Annexation, especially in certain times. So if you're a fan of thrash metal like Creator, especially the earlier stuff, then you should definitely listen to Annexation. But I guess you could even tell, like, you could even say that not only Creator, but I would say that Annexation, there are certain things in their music that is kind of like Teutonic thrash in general. So I think that you could probably hear a lot of Sodom, a lot of Destruction, and like a lot of Tankard in the music of Annexation as well. So like if you're into that style of thrash metal, like the kind of old school Teutonic thrash metal bands, then definitely check out Annexation. I would even say it's kind of like Annexation as a band is almost kind of like Creator, Obituary, and Slayer if you kind of put them together into one band. When it comes to the image of Annexation, the band would describe it as, quote, a sledgehammer appearing out of the dark, slamming right in your face. End of quote. For the band's approach, they're striving for a kind of raw and uncanny feeling. The band's lyrics, for example, tend to deal with very dark and unsettling themes, such as, for example, war, torture, psychopaths, and serial killers. I personally also think that this is kind of visualized in the band's logo with its sharp edges, and in some ways it kind of looks like a death metal logo to me. It has the first and last letter pointing inwards in kind of a similar way that a logo like the Obituary logo does. I'm not sure if this is intentional, but it was something that I thought about. I think that the logo looks very thrash, but could also work very well as a death metal logo, which in my opinion could be considered as a sign of the brutal/aggressive death metal side of Annexation as a band. The album art of the album Inherent Brutality by Annexation I would say is also following this kind of dark and unsettling theme of the band. It's red, there's a hand with claws sticking out, a broken skull with an eye hanging from it, a bloody morning star, a bloody jackhammer, and the album title is literally written in blood. The name Annexation was given to the band because the members thought the definition of the term is also an accurate definition of their music. It's kind of like, they would describe it kind of like a violent invasion and takeover of everything. When it comes to the future of Annexation, the band is focusing on their upcoming LP. It is planned for release sometime in 2025. Unfortunately, I don't have much more to say about it though, because that is pretty much what the band told me. So I don't know if it's going to be early 2025. I don't know if it's going to be late 2025. Like, I honestly have no idea. So, I mean, the best I could do pretty much is speculating, but I don't really have much to speculate other than the fact that it will be released sometime in 2025. But I mean, considering how great the last album of Annexation was, I have a very, very great feeling about this upcoming album, and I definitely hope that it's going to be as soon as possible, because I think that this is definitely going to be a great one. And I would, of course, encourage you listening to also keep your eyes open for this, because as I was saying, I think it's going to be a great one. I have a great feeling about it. In addition to this, however, the band is also focusing on playing more shows. And you know, considering the aggressive sound and kind of like the overall approach of Annexation, as I explained earlier, I feel very certain that they are really good live. And I would definitely love to see Annexation live myself. So basically, if you get the opportunity to see them live, I would strongly encourage you to do so, because that definitely seems like a great time. These are my thoughts and comments about the band, but now I would like to hear your thoughts. What do you think about Annexation? Do you have a favorite song by this band? If so, which one? Let us know in YouTube comments or on social media. We have now reached the end of this episode. It means a lot to me that you've been listening all the way to the end. I really appreciate that. We will be back to Verbalize again next week.